Why do some retirees thrive and others collapse? The hidden difference most professionals never see. Retirement does not change people suddenly. It only reveals the life they were already building, the life they built over 30, 20, 40 years of career. Good evening, gentlemen and the thoughtful ladies watching. One of the most confusing things many professionals observe after retirement is this. Why do some retirees seem to come alive after leaving work, while others quietly collapse emotionally, mentally, socially, and sometimes even physically? It is an important question because retirement itself is not automatically good or bad. It is what you make of it. Contrary to what many people assume, money alone does not explain the difference. Some financially comfortable retirees still become deeply unhappy, and some people with modest resources still build meaningful, stable, deeply fulfilling lives. So, what explains the difference? Why do some people transition successfully into the second act while others struggle badly? I believe the answer is deeper than finance. Retirement tends to expose the life people were already building long before they left work. And that is what I want us to examine tonight. Because many professionals are preparing for retirement financially without preparing structurally, emotionally, relationally, psychologically, or even personally. And retirement has a brutal way of exposing those gaps very quickly. Retirement reveals what work was hiding. And so, our first point for this evening, some people build identities, others build only careers. One of the biggest differences between thriving retirees and struggling retirees is identity. Many professionals unconsciously become fused with their titles. Their roles become their confidence. Their roles become their relevance. Their roles become their social importance. And sometimes their entire sense of self is built on that role. So when the office disappears, they quietly begin to lose themselves. But people who thrive after retirement usually build identities larger than their work. They developed personal interests, they developed an inner life, they developed relationships, they developed curiosity, they developed contribution systems, and they developed meaning beyond office. They knew who they were, even outside of their title. And so let me just prompt you a bit. If work is your only identity, retirement can feel like disappearance. And this leads us to point number two for this evening. Some people build structure, others build only busyness, being busy, not business. Many professionals underestimate how much structure work provides. Think about it for decades. Somebody needed you. Your schedule was fixed. Your routines were defined and managed by somebody. Your time had direction. Then suddenly, all that disappears. And many retirees discover something frightening. Freedom without structure can become emptiness. People who thrive after retirement intentionally rebuild their structure. Not office structure, but life structure. They create routines. They create meaningful engagement. They create physical activity. They create intellectual stimulation. They create social connection. They create contribution systems. They create disciplined living. But people who fail to rebuild structure often drift into isolation, they drift into boredom, they drift into emotional decline, and they drift into loss of relevance and loss of meaning. This takes us to point number three. Some people invested in relationships, others invested only in work. Many professionals spent decades succeeding publicly while neglecting relationships privately, with their siblings at home, with their mates in school. And work often hides relational weaknesses because office life constantly creates interaction, movement, validation, and social stimulation. But retirement removes that layer. And suddenly, some people discover they do not actually know how to live relationally anymore. People who thrive after retirement usually invested intentionally in marriage, in friendships, in family, in community, in faith, in human connection, long before retirement arrived. Think of your primary school classmates, your secondary school classmates, or university classmates. Do you have a relationship with them? Because eventually, relationships become one of the deepest forms of wealth. Mark that. Let me prompt you a bit again. Some people retired from work, others retired from life itself. Takes us to point number four. Some people developed purpose, others depended on position. There's a difference between position and purpose. Position is assigned externally, purpose is cultivated internally. Some professionals spent decades pursuing achievement without ever deeply exploring meaning beyond career success. So retirement becomes emotionally disorienting. Because the applause stops, the meetings stop, the authority reduces, and they suddenly begin asking, who still needs me? But retirees who thrive usually continue contributing somehow, not necessarily through formal employment, but through mentoring, through teaching, through writing, through leadership, through guidance, through community development and involvement, or meaningful service. because contribution sustains emotional vitality. Takes us to point number 5. Some people prepared emotionally, others only prepared financially. This may be one of the biggest hidden issues we face. Many professionals prepare financially for retirement, but never emotionally. They prepare for pension, they prepare for gratuity, they prepare for investments, they have properties, they have savings, they've done all manner of financial ways to secure their financial security. But they never prepare for the silence that is coming. They never prepare for the identity that is going to shift. They never prepare for slower routines. They never prepare for reduced recognition. They don't prepare for changing relevance. They don't prepare for aging, loneliness, or emotional adjustment. And retirement can become psychologically shocking when those realities arrive suddenly. People who thrive emotionally usually begin adjusting mentally long before retirement comes. Again, I'll prompt you. Do you know that retirement is not merely an economic transition? It is a human transition. And this leads us to point number 6 for this evening. Some people kept growing, others stopped evolving. I'll explain. One of the greatest dangers in later life is psychological stagnation. Some people unconsciously stop growing after reaching career success. They stop learning, they stop adapting, they stop exploring, they stop evolving. But thriving retirees are those ones who usually remain mentally alive. They're curious, they're engaged, they're open, they're flexible, they're still willing to learn, still willing to become. Because meaningful aging requires continued growth. And so we take the final reflection for this evening. Perhaps the greatest misunderstanding about retirement is this. Many people think retirement is the beginning of decline. No, it's not. Retirement simply amplifies what was already in you when you had your career. If a person built identity, if a person built relationships, if a person built purpose, if a person built structure, contribution, curiosity, and inner life, retirement may become very deeply meaningful and blissful for him or her. But if somebody spent decades building only professional success while neglecting the deeper architecture of life, retirement may quietly expose those gaps. And that is why the second act must be intentional, not merely financially prepared, but structurally prepared, emotionally prepared, relationally prepared, psychologically prepared, humanly prepared, because eventually every title is going to end. But life is going to continue. And the quality of that continued life matters deeply. And so in our next conversation, we're going to explore something many professionals underestimate until it is too late. Retirement will expose the life you actually built. And we will examine health, we'll examine relationships, we'll examine emotional dependency, we'll examine structure and the hidden consequences of postponement. Because sometimes the life we ignored quietly becomes the life we eventually inherit. I'm Obayemi Oladipo. This is Second Act Naija. Reinvent, rebuild, rise. Thank you.